think we all want to have that type of a life where we can have this time with our family, enjoy life without disease, without disability. Medicine component or the therapeutic component come from herbal extracts, salicylin and salicylic acid and aspirin, and we have to die sometime. We're all gonna die at some point in time, but the goal is to live healthy, happy life.
If you've heard of the Longevity Bible Lifespan by Professor David Sinclair, you know that living well is more important than just living long. In fact, this show is dedicated to the science of beauty, wellness, and longevity. That's why I'm so thrilled to partner with Melrose FUTURELAB. FUTURELAB is Australia's first supplement range focused on extending not just your lifespan, but your health span. Available exclusively at Chemist Warehouse, these affordable and science-backed supplements are the key to aging well. Neal, I'm so happy to have you on the show. From when we did our event to launch FUTURELAB, we're here together in studio. And one of the things that I remember so well from the event that we did is that you were quoted as saying that despite as Aussies living longer, we are actually less healthy, sicker, and fatter. And that really stuck with me. And I'm wondering why you think that focusing on health span is more important than just longevity.
Yeah. So there is the difference between lifespan and health span. And lifespan is how long we age, how long we live, the number of years in our life. And health span has been defined as the number of years that we live without disease. And there is a groundswell of awareness and interest in us preserving our lives, preserving the healthy lives healthy years that we have in our lives. We all have that relative who lives till they're 90, right? We all have that one aunt or uncle or who's just always been healthy and just always vibrant and just with all this vitality. And I think we all want to have that type of a life where we can have this time with our family, enjoy life without disease, without disability, and really, thrive.
It's funny you should give that analogy to start off with. And earlier this year, I went to the US to see my grandmother. She's 96 and she suddenly aged. And she was in a home when I went to visit her. And it was so confronting because when you see someone who's a genetic makeup of you and, your immediate line of genetics, and I had always known my grandmother to be so exactly what you described, active, thriving, healthy, vital, mobile, absolutely the matriarch of our family. And then seeing her go back to this almost childlike state where, the cognition was in decline, her body had betrayed her. And at that moment, I understood more than ever that I want health span, not just lifespan.
Yeah.
It was so clear to me. And then when I came back from the States, that became like my raison d'etre because I saw my future in front of me. I thought, you know what? I had taken for granted that this would be forever because it could be one event, it could be one thing that you overlooked in your wellness journey. And for her it was exercise. And her musculoskeletal system betrayed her, and now she's living with the consequences of that. So I came back and I really doubled down on what it meant for me to be healthy. And I think that this is a really interesting conversation because I think that menopause for women is often that trigger point where we start thinking, okay, what does it mean to be vital, functioning, sharp, alert, strong? So, with the launch of FUTURELAB, you're talking about longevity, but I love that you're also talking about health span.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have to die sometime, right? We're all going to die at some point in time, but you're so right in that trying to preserve how we live, the health and vitality of us through that period of time. Like a lot of people will say, the goal is to live a healthy, happy life until the point, and then a very quick degradation, and you die there, right? Yeah, right off. Versus just being kept alive by, pharmaceuticals or whatever that will
Or
preserve,
sheer force of will,
or
as
sheer
is the
force of
case
will. That's
with a
right.
lot of
Yeah,
people.
yeah. And it in the United States, I'm from the US originally, and we're very lucky here in Australia to be able to have a lifestyle that enables us to participate more outside and be more active. And that's a big part of ensuring and maintaining our health span as well. Just being active, being out there, being physically active.
You developed a range for Melrose called FUTURELAB. And as I understand it, and that this is a brand that really has taken into consideration the hallmarks of aging and the science of aging well. And I'm curious if you could explain in your universe, as someone who's working alongside a brand that is a wellness brand, what elements you consider to be the key hallmarks of aging that we want to support for
Y-
aging well.
Yeah, well, you mentioned perimenopause and menopause, and a lot of the symptoms that result from that, and andropause as a man as well. A lot of those symptoms are symptoms of general aging and hallmarks of aging as well. So as we think about it, we think about bone health and bone density preservation, cognition, stress and anxiety is critical. There's muscle protein synthesis, muscle preservation. There's also inflammation as well. These are all things that impact our health as we age. And then there are other aspects that are maybe a little bit more hidden, or that maybe we don't feel, maybe we do. And that's things like glucose metabolism, how
Yes.
we
Suddenly put on weight.
metabolize blood sugars. That's right. And even other kind of newer enzymes or switches within our body that we're just discovering and learning about, such as sirtuins or AMPK and mTOR, things like that.
Do you know, it's really funny. I have this knowing in my body that I cannot metabolize alcohol anymore.
Oh.
Like I feel poisoned by alcohol,
Yeah.
and it's really a postmenopausal symptom for me. I was never a big drinker. I'm small. It's not something I've really done a lot of, but now I can't even have 2 glasses of wine without feeling absolutely poisoned the next day. And so, when you start tuning into your body and you start seeing the changes, like you were saying, some of those hallmarks of aging, for me, some of the hallmarks of aging have been my ability to process certain food or to function with less sleep, or, I need a more robust recovery program. I need a totally different movement protocol
Mm.
to feel as good or as strong as I want to. And I think it's really interesting because for me, and this sounds terribly vain, but it's the truth. My first interaction with my curiosity around aging well came with how I looked.
Mm.
I was more
Mm.
concerned about how I appeared to be aging rather than how I felt to be aging or how I functioned to be
Mm.
aging. And then, so that was my first kind of interaction with wanting to age well and wanting to age healthily and slower. And then I realized, actually, no, what I want is to be stronger and fitter and faster and sharper for longer. And then, of course, you think about, the disease aspect of aging and the preventative side. And I'm wondering if you could talk to us about the not so much the part that I was attracted to at first, which is how I looked, but rather the cellular nature
Sure.
of aging well.
Yeah. So I mentioned those three enzymes, protein, different switches, and they have a very strong relationship with each other. And we're learning more and more about them, by the way. And that is AMPK. And AMPK is, think of that as kind of your fuel gauge.
Yes.
If you're driving a car, this is your fuel gauge. And as your fuel gets lower, your AMPK switch comes on. And what AMPK does is it basically scavenges your body for different sources of fuel. It's very good. It kind of cleans out all of the senescent cells. Have you heard of this concept of cellular senescence?
I have, but I'd love for you to explain it to us because you have this wonderful way of explaining scientific terminology with great evocative images.
So
This is the Pac-Man effect, right?
Yeah, that's right. And so you think of zombies, right?
Yes.
So senescent cells are also known as kind of zombie cells, and they're these dead, low functioning cells, and they don't have any purpose, but they actually have still a lot of nutrient value. And so what AMPK does, in this concept of autophagy is when your body will take these senescent cells and break them apart and redistribute the nutrients that are found in there that your body can recirculate. You've heard that concept of your body renews itself every 7 years.
Yes,
It's
I
kind of
have.
similar to that, right? Where you're breaking down these cells, you're renewing and replenishing.
Dr. David Sinclair talks about autophagy a lot, and a lot of people do intermittent fasting to support that.
That's right.
Right? Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So intermittent fasting will impact that. There are other nutrients as well that you can take and herbal extracts that you can take to influence that. But it helps. Yeah, it just kind of clears things out. It's catabolic. It breaks down. So AMPK helps, and when you're activating AMPK, it also helps you. We a lot of research around longevity with the activation of AMPK, and that's something that Dr. David Sinclair is pouring a lot of his time and effort into. Is what things switch on AMPK, how does AMPK interact with these other cellular functions. So another cellular function is called our sirtuins, right? Sirtuins are enzymes as well, and they have a relationship with AMPK. There are 7 different sirtuins. They're found in our cells. And essentially, these are the longevity enzymes. So they play a very important role in switching on and off different proteins that have a significant impact on health span and longevity. And the other aspect, those are also influenced not only by AMPK, but also by things like NAD production, which NAD is our kind of the currency that our body uses for energy. So NAD impacts and promotes ATP production, which is kind of like
the energy pack
of our cells, the mitochondria, right? Those power stations within our cells. And so that's switched on by a number of things. Having NAD, things like resveratrol, quercetin also help to switch on
Again,
sirtuins.
those are things that Dr. David Sinclair spoke about a lot. And I read the book, sorry to interrupt you, I want to say 4 years ago. And like most people who read the book, first of all, the science is quite bamboozling. It's a lot of science, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really pleased to be having this, cheats notes version of the conversation with you. Thank you. But secondly, the other thing that it did is, for me, rather, it made me like hyper-focused around supplementation and things that I'd never heard of before, like NAD+. I'd heard about resveratrol in the context of skincare and beauty, grape extracts or glass of wine being helpful as an antioxidant. But in the construct of regenerative medicine, wellness, longevity, it became kind of an imperative. And it was hard to get those products.
Yeah, these are things, they've been around for a long time and they've been studied for many different purposes, but we're only now really starting to discover how they work and their impact on longevity and how they can, what they do and how they switch different things on that can help us. And, the other aspect of it is that they're not all the same. You can have some forms of berberine that aren't as beneficial as others, some forms of resveratrol that aren't as beneficial and usable as other forms. And that's why it's also important to make sure that you have the right supplements as well. You have the right quality behind them.
You said something earlier about taking the supplements and how we've come a long way, I guess. Yeah. Can you get it terribly wrong and just be taking a bunch of things that because when you talk about over-the-counter supplementation, it is a matter of self-discovery. So maybe you're listening to a podcast like this, you're inspired by the conversation we're having, maybe you've read a book and you go down the path of what I did, which is get online because I couldn't find the supplements that I wanted and order a bunch of them and throw them into the mixer that was my body and hope for the best. Can you get it terribly wrong?
Yes, you can. I think we're we're protected here in Australia. So I'm from the US originally. I've spent a lot of time in the US dietary supplements industry, and in Australia, that's governed by the Therapeutic Goods Administration, the TGA. And what I can say without question is that as Australians, our TGA really looks after us from the standpoint of ensuring safety and ensuring quality. But just because you have those two things, so whatever you're allowed to have as a listed medicine in Australia. So if you look at the bottom of your label and it says AustL, that stands for Australian listed medicine. And
I love those cheat codes and how to read the label better. Thank you.
So, and what that means is that product must be manufactured in a manufacturing facility that adheres to good manufacturing processes. And they're very strict. Australia have some of the strictest regulations in the world. The product all those ingredients are tested at the raw material level. They're tested when they're mixed and granulated, and they're tested in the finished good as well. And it also requires you to have stability protocols in place. So it's as good when you start as when the end of the shelf life occurs. So those are good things about that. And I think we're very lucky. Having said that, not all berberine extracts are the same. Not all quercetin extracts are the same. When you think about herbal extraction, you think about, all of the many different constituents that are found in herbal extracts. They're called phytochemicals, right?
That's
Plant-based chemicals. And each one of those, there can be, hundreds or thousands even in some herbs. And so we know that different phytochemicals have different impacts. And sometimes those herbal extracts need to be standardized to a particular phytochemical as well.
And they can interact with medication as well, right? Remember, we were talking about that before. If you go out there willy-nilly and,
So these are medicines. We are in Australia. In the US, they're dietary supplements, which are kind of like in between food and medicine.
Yeah.
In Australia, they're considered medicines. And so, you need to have, as a company, you have to also monitor safety and program what's called pharmacovigilance, in the same way that any pharmaceutical company would also need to monitor the safety and interaction and usability of their supplements as well.
And FUTURELAB is launched exclusively at Chemist Warehouse. So I would have thought that for them to kind of enter that space with you and for you guys to do that partnership, there had to be a certain level of safety and meticulous, clarity.
Yeah, I think we're very lucky to have our relationship with Chemist Warehouse in that, Chemist Warehouse, I think they're 60% of supplements that are sold in Australia come through Chemist Warehouse. And
they are, yeah.
They're a very big player, very big capability to address the needs.
And it's where we all go. I thank God now to have to ship everything in. I can just go to Chemist Warehouse, but it is where, most Australians shop.
Yeah.
And so if they're interacting with longevity supplements for the first time, it's kind of, you're taking the trust of being in a Chemist Warehouse as well.
And they are tough. Yeah, they're very tough.
Oh.
Their quality and regulatory systems are, you think Chemist Warehouse and you think access and you think, kind of pushing the boundaries and things that you can go to get and, kind of a new dynamic business model. But from a quality and regulatory perspective, they are, they abide by the rules. And so we really need to come to the party with.
Actually, I do remember that because when I hosted your launch event and I had my MC script, I actually shared it with them and they were like, red line, red line, red line. You can't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that. That's very ambitious. That's promising too much.
Yeah.
And I guess you have to respect that Australian wellness, Australian healthcare, Chemist Warehouse, yourselves are respecting those boundaries because it can be a lawless state. And lots of people ask me, I get asked this question all the time. Do you really need supplementation? Like, is it expensive urine?
Right.
Yeah. I take it all. So for me, it's not. I believe it.
Yeah.
And I felt the difference in my body. It's changed so many aspects in the hallmarks of aging. So many aspects of my menopause experience have been improved.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a hell yes. But I understand people's suspicion around it.
Yeah. And probably in some things, yes. I think some things that when we're talking about low micronutrients and things that you can get in foods and in some cases, like vitamin D3, we know we're deficient in D3. We know we're deficient in magnesium. We know that some of these really important nutrients and ingredients we don't and can't get enough of.
I have a great update to share from Melrose FUTURELAB. Hormonal health is a vital hallmark of aging and longevity, and whether you're navigating perimenopause or menopause, Melrose FUTURELAB's new ultra-complex supplements are here to support you. Backed by clinical research and using advanced technology for effective absorption, these formulations are designed to provide relief through every phase. Find them exclusively at Chemist Warehouse. Always read the label and follow the directions for use.
But there are certainly things that we can with a very good diet. Having said that, a lot of the medicine component or the therapeutic component of the formulas that we have come from herbal extracts. And herbal extracts, that's where medicine used to start from herbal extraction.
Yep.
Right? And we spoke a little bit about willow, the willow bark and the white willow tree, and kind of where that's come from, where initially people would take the bark of the willow tree as an analgesic, and then we discovered salicylin and salicylic acid and aspirin, and kind of really understanding the role of these things. And now we have what is now modern medicine with these anti-inflammatories and things that impact pain and inflammation, but coming from many cases coming from a herbal constituent to begin with.
Well, speaking of coming from a herbal constituent to begin with, I would be remiss if I didn't address the elephant in the room, which is GLP-1 medication.
Okay.
And you've talked about berberine a lot.
Mm.
And I think that, for people who are getting their health information from social media, there has been an explosion of interest in berberine as a supplement that can potentially help regulate blood sugar and can have some downstream benefits of weight loss.
Yeah.
Can you, and you talked about berberine before,
Yeah.
Can you tell us where berberine comes from, what it is, and how it can be used as part of the longevity protocol, but also for, we touched on before, the perimenopausal effect of rapid weight gain that you never had before?
Yeah. So berberine is one of those phytochemicals that I spoke about that we've identified as having some value, and that can be found in a number of different herbal extracts. So the berberry that we use is called Berberis aristata, or Indian barberry. And so it's prominent in Ayurvedic medicine initially, but also can be found in things like Oregon grape and different other herbal extracts as well. So it's one of those phytochemicals that's found in a number of different herbal extracts. Berberine itself is very difficult for us to use. Our body doesn't like to use it. It's not easy for us to break it down and use it. And it can also be quite irritable and irritating.
Yes, I was going to say, and I'm not just saying this because you're sitting in front of me and you formulated one and not the other, but I used to take berberine and it would upset my tummy so much.
Yeah.
And now that I'm taking the Melrose one, it's so easy. It's like nothing. And I really appreciate that.
Well, we use a form of berberine that comes from an Italian herbal extract manufacturer called Indina. And Indina are great in that they have developed many different herbal extracts. We use quite a few of them in FUTURELAB. But what they do is number one, they do clinical trials, clinical research on their herbal extracts, which is so important, and clinical trials that are peer-reviewed, published, placebo-controlled. But they also have developed a technology to improve the absorption and usability and the tolerability of berberine as well. So they have this really terrific technology called a phytosome, which essentially utilizes a form of fat, phosphatidylcholine, that they use that helps improve the affinity of the active into your cell, because our cells are also made of fat. But they've complexed that with grapeseed and pea protein. And what that helps to do is kind of buffer the berberine and make it easier
I've
to
had
utilize.
pea protein before as an alternative to a protein shake, and it is easier to tolerate.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
So normally with berberine, you have to pulse it because of the impacts and negative impacts. With the Indina, with our berberine complex, you can take it every day, and it won't have the same negative impacts on your tummy and on your microbiome that maybe some other forms of berberine can have.
And what is the role of berberine in a regenerative or anti-aging protocol?
Yeah, so I spoke a little bit earlier about those cellular longevity pathways for aging, and the one in particular is AMPK. So berberine has been demonstrated to increase AMPK, which is that enzyme that is, I mentioned, it's that fuel gauge. So it's telling your body to metabolize fuel sources. So it actually helps metabolize glucose, blood glucose, and maintain healthy levels of blood glucose. It also plays a role in HDL, LDL, the bad form of cholesterol. So
Right.
LDL receptors, and it helps to maintain healthy levels of LDL as well. So from that, when you increase AMPK, your body is switching on these different enzymes and proteins that will utilize glucose, that will kind of take fat, and that can have that downstream impact on both glucose metabolism, metabolic health, but also visceral fat as well. And that's, kind of some of those
That's
benefits.
the dream.
That's right. That's the dream.
That is the dream. We talked a lot about musculoskeletal health and that being one of the key things in aging well, making sure you're supporting your bones, you're supporting your muscles, your ligaments. And that is key in aging well, but it's a huge concern for menopausal or perimenopausal women who suddenly aware of, as estrogen leaves their, drops, their bone density and their ability to retain muscle, make muscle. What in the FUTURELAB kind of universe, where does that come in terms of the formulations that you've worked on?
Sure. So we've developed a product called Muscle Protein Complex.
Which I take. And I've learned a new way to take it today.
Yes, yeah,
I'm going
that's
to
right.
make my own bulletproof coffee based on your new recipe.
That's how I have it every morning. I'll put a scoop of that in my coffee, whiz it up with a little bit of cream and some MCT oil. It's really good. Great way to start your morning. But Muscle Protein Complex delivers 25 grams of protein.
And it's clean.
It's very clean. It comes from, the protein that we use is from collagen. And that collagen comes from a German collagen manufacturer called Gelita.
Is it a bovine collagen?
It is bovine,
Yeah.
yes. And
the reason I want to bring that to everyone's attention is if you are listening to Mary Claire Haver, who is a luminary in the world of menopause care, and she talks a lot about bovine collagen as being key. And I think it's actually in the product that she manufactures as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. So Gelita make a number of types of collagen or collagen extracts from bovine source.
Because we talk a lot about, the reason I asked if it is bovine collagen is because we in the beauty side of the fence talk a lot about marine collagen and the benefits it has on your skin and your hair and your nails. So I'm curious as to.
Yeah, so Gelita make a source called Verisol that is clinically trialed for skin health. The one that we use in our muscle protein complex is called Body Balance. And Body Balance at 15 grams, which is the dose of that particular collagen that we have two different forms, Pepti Plus and Body Balance, that both add up to 25 grams. But 15 grams of that comes from Body Balance that has been clinically trialed in aging individuals and in individuals who are athletes, performance. So kind of both ends of the spectrum,
me,
right?
But I like to think that I'm still athletic.
in both cohorts, it improved strength and lean muscle mass. And in some, it actually did that without exercise. Now, I would 100% urge everyone to do some strength training, particularly as we age, because of the impact of not only building muscle, but also maintaining healthy bone mineral density as well. Strength training will help with that, utilizing weight training.
Something that you said, I do want to pick up on, you said that in some clinical studies, it's shown that it can support even if you're not doing any training.
Yeah.
I have experience with that in that when I was pregnant with my daughter, Lily, I was hospitalized for 7 weeks prior to giving birth because I had placenta previa and I had massive muscle atrophy. I literally couldn't get up and walk after I had it because I'd been lying on my back. And one of the things that they gave me in hospital was some version of this supplement, which I believe a lot of hospitals give patients who are infirm for a very long time.
Yes.
you can't do any exercise. When you have the condition that I had, you literally cannot move. But they had to do something to preserve the muscle integrity. So I'm wondering if that might be what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I spoke a bit about the collagen and the protein component. The other active component that's in muscle protein complex is a metabolite of leucine. So you think of the branched chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Those are known mainly to impact muscle growth. So I spoke about AMPK, spoke about sirtuins, didn't speak yet about mTOR.
Yes.
mTOR is a little bit of a double-edged sword in that many longevity experts will say, ooh, we want to downregulate mTOR because mTOR is kind of it's the build switch. It's the protein synthesis switch. Now that's good, but chronic mTOR, if you have too much for too long, can also put you into an inflammatory state. And you're not clearing out necessarily all the things that you want to clear out. But mTOR is good and important. So mTOR in your muscles is good because that is telling your muscles to build. That is building its protein synthesis in your muscles, and that the key component with it there is leucine. And what we have in our muscle protein complex is a metabolite of leucine called HMB.
That's right. We were talking about this before.
That's right. And HMB is probably what they gave you when you were in the hospital, because that has over 600 clinical trials specifically on muscle growth, preservation, lean muscle mass. And I think the combination of including clinically trialed form of collagen in body balance and enough protein, as well as HMB and D3, because there's a synergistic effect between HMB and D3. I think that gives your body the best chance of maintaining, building, and preserving that lean muscle mass as you age.
Well, I'm taking it, and I'm taking it. The first reason I wanted to take it is because of the 25 grams of protein.
Yeah.
But now I'm like doubly excited that I'm taking something that's helping, restore my muscle, preserve my muscle for recovery as well, which is definitely very important.
So it's unflavored, unsweetened, and it's designed that way really so you can mix it with whatever you want to mix it with. If you want to mix it with your coffee, you want to mix it with a smoothie, you want to chuck it in your spaghetti bolagnese, you want to put it into...
And it won't degrade if you heat it?
Absolutely not. Nope, it's fine. Vitamin D does have some, is sensitive to heat, but the other components are fine.
Neal, what are I know you've created it, so it's difficult for me to ask you to be unbiased, but what do you think is the formulation innovation that FUTURELAB has really nailed?
Yeah. I spoke a little bit about bioavailability.
Yes, and we talked about that a lot at the launch, and everyone in the room, like the penny dropped when you talked about that. So yes, talk more about that.
Many of these actives that we use are not inherently well bioavailable, are not very easily absorbed and utilized. And so we use 3 different technologies, and we try to use a bioavailability enhancing technology in every formula that we create because we want you to get the best result of this. And so I spoke a little bit about Indina's technology, which is the phytos, and they all kind of operate in similar ways. There's also a technology that we use called a liposome. And a liposome is essentially an active ingredient that is complexed within a healthy fat molecule. And again, the goal with that is the affinity to absorption and cellular absorption. And so we use liposomes, in liposomal form in some of our products. And the other form that I'm really excited about, and actually was invented here in Australia and in Sydney, is called a liposperse technology.
Oh.
So liposperse was created by a company that we work with really closely called Pharmaco.
Yes.
And they're just and then other side of the harbor.
Trip?
Yeah, that's right. I'm going there actually next week.
I'm coming. I love nothing more than a field trip. I've just come back from Cosmoprof, and you've given me 3 big global events to go to.
So with many of these, there's fat absorbed molecules, lipophilic molecules, affinity towards fat. Many of these molecules, the liposperse technology helps to essentially disperse those across a larger surface area and helps you absorb them. So they've actually done clinical trials. Actually, so is the liposomal supplier and Indina have also done clinical trials demonstrating and looking at a non-enhanced form of this. So, for instance, the resveratrol that we use is a resveratrol called Verisperse. And then what they did is they looked at the same resveratrol in humans, and then the Verisperse resveratrol. And what they saw is double the absorption in area under the curve
And that's
in your
so
blood.
interesting, because that's the question that I get asked the most: is it expensive? Is it wasted?
Yeah.
Am I buying all these things without any benefit?
And in some cases, probably. And that's why it's important. That's why it's really important to understand what you're consuming, where it's coming from, what the science is behind it, where you're getting it. Yeah. And certainly, look, I've been in this industry my whole professional career and have been around good and bad raw materials. And that was what was so much fun putting this together with the team at Melrose, was to be able to just choose the best. It was almost like carte blanche.
Yeah, Nathan has got, he's got such a purist
Yeah.
approach. Your CEO's got like a really heart-centered, purist approach
He does.
to how, what he launches and where you're going with the business. Speaking of where you're going, where are you going? I mean, when I helped you launch FUTURELAB, it was really a longevity play. And now you've expanded into perimenopause and menopause products based on an incredibly crazy study that you showed me, a result that you showed me. Tell my listeners about that.
Well, when we're kind of looking at menopause, perimenopause, it's just such an underserved space. And one of the things that we did,
we're talking about it a lot now, but you're right. When you gave me that particular statistic, it was crazy, because we think we're hearing about it a lot. Therefore, there must be a lot in play to support women in perimenopause. And it's simply not true.
That's right. So if you look up PubMed is the database of published research. So if you look up pregnancy in PubMed, now it may have changed slightly, but you get the gist. We got 1.1 million results, published research on pregnancy.
Yes.
You look at menopause, it drops down to 97,000.
Wow.
You look at perimenopause, you're at 6,400 published results for perimenopause. It just isn't being looked at. And yet what we know.
That's where the party is. That's where the nightmare is.
That's where that's right. Yeah. So we're discovering through all of the, environmental impacts to hormone balance, right? We're discovering that perimenopause can start as early in your 30s. It can start.
Absolutely.
And menopause is we were speaking about this as well. It's such a fallacy. It's like menopause, the definition is 1 year and 1 day. So you actually have menopause for 1 day. And after that 1 day, you're in postmenopause.
Yeah.
So you're only actually in menopause in 1 day of your life. Otherwise, you're in perimenopause or you're in postmenopause.
That's it.
But a lot of the symptoms, a lot of the issues faced by women are similar issues to those faced by anyone aging as well. Like things like, mood swings, anxiety, hot flushes, brain fog, tinnitus, if you're Australian, thinning hair, decreased libido, energy, lack of energy. There's all these symptoms, and there's some great herbal extracts. There's some great researched, evidence-based actives that we can tap into to help support women in perimenopause and in menopause. And that's what we've done. We've pulled these together. And again, we've used the liposperse technology to try to deliver these. And we've used herbal extracts that are standardized to those that have been clinically trialed as well. So we feel really confident that they're going to work, that they're going to have an impact, and that they're very comprehensive as well. So we use, like, I'll just talk to you about a perimenopause product. We use a form of saffron that comes from Spain that is clinically trialed called Afron, and clinically trialed on perimenopausal women as well.
Right,
So it's
which
one of
is
those,
rare.
yeah, one of those 6,000 results, right? We also use a form of Siberian rhubarb that's been clinically trialed in perimenopausal women. And we use the other thing I love, we're using this Indian herbal extract called shatavari.
I've
And
heard of that.
have you heard of shatavari?
Yes, I have.
So
Now I feel a bit
shatavari,
smarter.
yeah, so it kind of translates into she who has 100 husbands.
Oh, that would be me. I've had two.
Now, someone might not want to have 100 husbands, but it kind of gives you that, kind of that empowering virility, kind of a sense of how it kind of works and how
Oh,
it's been used
wow.
over time. So
So real goddess formula.
goddess formula.
I like
Yeah, yeah. So I'm excited. We're excited to launch it. We don't think that market is really being serviced well.
What I'm excited about you guys entering that space is that you do tend to simplify the hugely complicated. And I think what you did with FUTURELAB was really exciting because you took the very complicated and layered aspect of aging well and the hallmarks of aging, and you built a protocol around it that, as you said, you could take all of it if you really wanted to. No one really does need all of it all at once. Or you could, go to a Chemist Warehouse and say, okay, these are the issues that I'm facing. These are the things that I'm interested in supporting. And then you can pick up products that work well together and build your own little protocol.
Yeah, that's right. We were talking about that. It's and yeah, I don't take
What's
all
your
of the products.
protocol?
Yeah, so my protocol, every morning I will take our Berberine complex. I'll take our cellular longevity product, which is quercetin and resveratrol.
Yeah. It's really hard to get that. That was a great one. Like, I think bravo to you for that product.
Thank you.
There's
Yeah.
not a lot in the market, and certainly not with the duo.
Yeah, and they're both lipid-dispersed, so both of them, resveratrol and quercetin, are difficult to absorb.
I would say that's the only product that you don't necessarily feel the difference, but you're doing something. It's like an insurance policy for your body, right?
That's right.
Would I be right in saying
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. So, with that, there's a lot of research, and David Sinclair has done a lot of research on that as well, in terms of increasing AMPK, increasing sirtuin activation, kind of autophagy as well. So these are all things that are happening in the background, right, that are beneficial and that are preserving your health span and your lifespan. So I'll take that, and then I'll take our NAD booster, which is liposperse nicotinamide riboside. So we haven't spoken much about kind of NAD and NAD precursors, but we use NR, which is a clinically trialed form of NAD precursor. But we also complex that with a methyl donor, which I think is really important if you're taking any NAD product or any product to improve your endogenous creation of NAD. That recycling pathway, when it's excreted, it actually sequesters a methyl group. And you want to make sure you maintain sufficient levels of methyl donors. Methylation is used in so many different processes in your body. And if you don't have enough, it can impact your homocysteine levels. That can impact cardiovascular health or detoxification pathways or cognitive health as well. So there's a lot of. It's very important to make sure if you're boosting NAD, you're also providing a methyl donor as well. So those are the three, and then I take our muscle protein complex as well. So every morning I take that.
Well, I am very, first of all, impressed by all of the care that you've taken in putting together this range. I really did not know. I think, like most consumers, I was very ingredient focused rather than formulation focused, if I can say that. Sure. And what I've learned in this conversation together is that you can have all the best ingredients in the world, and many companies do. It's what the recipe is and the precautions that you take to make sure that as you're, amping one thing up, you don't accidentally unbalance another aspect of the system. So I want to thank you so much for that perspective in this conversation.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I could talk about this for days.
I could talk about this for days. And I would like to think that we'll have you back on the show, especially as you launch newness in this category. Yeah. And also thank you so much for making it affordable. I don't know how you've managed that. Maybe it's the distribution being so far and wide with Chemist Warehouse, but I'm saving money since I'm getting it at Chemist Warehouse because longevity supplements are expensive and this range isn't. So well done you.
Yeah, well, thanks to Chemist Warehouse as well for making them, affordable also. And that was, as you mentioned, one of the important components of that relationship too.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Wonderful to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Nice being on here.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel, sign up for our free newsletter, and consider leaving a review and rating it. This really helps the channel grow and reach new audiences.